Hey, want to hear a Star Wars rumor? No? Well, I'm going to tell you one anyway. It appears Obi-Wan Kenobi Season 2, rumored in development. Yeah, well, the Kenobi series was a massive letdown, and I think it was so bad that any real hope left for Star Wars pretty much was finished with that series. Um, there's been some things here. Mandalorian season 3 was god awful. Acolyte, of course, no point in even mentioning it. Ahsoka was a massive letdown, just really nothing in it. And then Skeleton Crew was actually not bad. That was actually a cute little show. But the damage to the overall brand had been done, and nobody showed up to watch that one. And that was the good one. That's the way the cookie crumbles. So anyway, it's claimed that Disney and Lucasfilm are moving forward with another Star Wars series for Ewan McGregor, as rumors claim Obi-Wan Kenobi Season 2 is in development. There's not much to go on other than scooper Daniel RPK stating Obi-Wan Kenobi Season 2 is in the works. Back in October of last year, McGregor said he was hopeful a second season would happen. Obviously, between the end of the Obi-Wan Kenobi series and when Alec McGuinness is Obi-Wan Kenobi, there's got to be another few stories in there, McGregor said at LA Comic-Con, and added that Disney and Lucasfilm are exploring new ideas for the future of the series. McGregor also said he wants to wear the armor from Clone Wars and wants Hayden Christensen back. Of course, Hayden Christensen was in Ahsoka. He did have a brief appearance in the Kenobi show with a flashback. So I guess the idea that they would do these flashbacks and have to do some de-aging for them, because the armor would have, it's Clone Wars stuff. So you saw it in animated form, but not in live action. So, gee, what happened in season 1? Well, everything that broke canon and screwed up the timeline and made no real sense. Really bad. Obi-Wan Kenobi season 1. The story picks up 10 years after Revenge of the Sith, with Obi-Wan living in exile on Tatooine. So far, so good. Watching over a young Luke Skywalker. Right, yeah, that's good. Haunted by his failure with Anakin and disconnected from the Force. Well, haunted by Anakin, sure. Disconnected from the Force, why would he do that? Now, his depression and stuff over the loss of Anakin and what have you, okay, sure, to a certain point. But man, it falls apart right then and there. You have a young Jedi who seeks him out, looking for help, and he sends him on his way. The guy gets murdered. But more importantly is that Obi-Wan wasn't thinking at all here. What if this guy gave him up? He's there to protect Luke Skywalker. And then, here comes this, young Jedi who's on the run and seeking him out for help and whatnot. You're just going to have to take him in. And so you have to keep quiet. I'm going to get you a job here, whatever that was, cutting meat off that giant fish or whatever the hell they were doing. Something like that, but to just let him go and get captured by the Empire and then murdered, well, but good thing he kept quiet, huh? Yeah, so right off the bat, it's very stupid. So Obi-Wan is forced out when young Princess Leia is kidnapped. Now this, of course, you couldn't have a Luke Skywalker story because, you got to emphasize the girl. Then you introduce Reva. So they give her a backstory that she was one of the little Padawans who was there when Anakin slaughtered them all. And she survived, got recruited by the Inquisitors, and all this sort of thing. And really, her plot to kill Darth Vader, there's almost something there. And that could have been a show unto itself. I've long said after all the failures, they should have scrapped everything and for D+, do a Darth Vader series where it's Darth Vader hunting the Jedi in the 20 years between the original two trilogies. and that sort of thing. Plus, some of the comic books and whatnot covered the stories of his crazy attempts to resurrect Padme and stuff like that. You could have had Boba Fett in there and being one of his guys that he hires for jobs and whatnot, and eventually you could even craft a story out of the no disintegrations and that type of thing. And that's it. You can have Darth being a badass here and there and all that. Of course, he's just this evil villain. It'd be all this criminal stuff going on. You could have some people who go up against him. And one of these plots could have been this Reva character. And that would have been more fitting there, not to mess up Obi-Wan with it. But here it's sort of slapped on, and it everything falls apart. And the introduction of Darth Vader in this, it just looks so cheap, and it's so badly shot. That's not how you have Darth Vader come on scene like that. And it's unforgivable, So, and then the whole thing that he didn't know Anakin was Darth Vader, that's all BS. And it's obvious from the films that Leia never met Obi-Wan. She knew him because her father knew him, and that was it. But you know why they did it. You got to emphasize the girl over the boy. And that's why they did it, which throws out all logic and sense of what's already been established. When you're in the prequel realm, you're limited. And that's where you put this. Now, one of the things about it, the most obvious story, I thought, and there's very brief shots given to this, is like what happened between Obi-Wan and Uncle Owen. And even at the end of this series where he introduces him to Luke and all that stuff, and he's open to this. He's open to, Obi-Wan coming in, meeting the boy and all that stuff. And then so a season 2 could delve into that. It's just the damage of this first season. I would just pretend the first season didn't happen at all, and start over with this one. And it's one of those things like, say Owen had to go on a trip to get parts for the farm and stuff like that. And he's going to take Luke with him. I don't know, Aunt Beru is sick or something like that, and can't let Luke be by himself, so he's going to go with Uncle Owen. And Obi-Wan tags along because he's nervous about him being out there and all this sort of thing. And then you could have scenes where it comes close to running into Darth Vader even, but never does. The idea that Obi-Wan and Darth had another duel and all that, just no. But things like that, visions of one another, you could fill that out with stuff like that. But ultimately, and even if you had young Leia around, but Luke and Leia can never meet and that sort of thing, that gets a bit too far-fetched. But nevertheless, an adventure like that, and they almost lose Luke. Luke, you could have it in a situation where he's unaware of it. I don't know that having him knocked out like they did in the season 1 and that kind of thing. But for the most part, but Owen's very much aware of it. And it's kind of just an Owen and an Kenobi show. And then at the end of it, Kenobi comes through. He, everyone's safe. They get back home. He saves them all and all that. But Owen was so horrified by the whole experience. And he says, I don't want you anywhere around him anymore. And all this, him becoming a Jedi in the future and all that, you already failed at that with Anakin. It's done. And Luke's my son now. He's mine. And then it ends that way, Little does he know, the Force had other plans, but nevertheless, it's a powerful thing. Two guys start off as friends. They have a certain understanding for one another and all this sort of stuff. And then the danger and the power of evil and whatnot splits them up, And it's understandable. Owen would be very terrified for Luke's safety. So, but hey, do you think they would do that for season 2? I doubt it. just more of the dumb stuff they've been doing. So, yeah, they have their fight. Qui-Gon Jinn appears. So, yeah, you can have him scenes of counseling with Qui-Gon and all that, but I don't know. So, Kenobi wasn't well received by fans. It only has a 61% audience score on Rotten Tomatoes, which isn't a good score at all. News of a potential Season 2 is surprising, as Kenobi was billed as a one-and-done miniseries. However, the series is among the highest-rated Star Wars shows on DP, only trailing The Mandalorian. Maybe Disney can get it right the second time around? I doubt it. But yeah, you just forget what happened in Season 1. And then, maybe... Yeah, it's a shame. And, I mean, after all the troubles and the mistakes made and the stupidity, they'd have been better off just not doing it at all. And then to get the realization that it was supposed to be a movie, and Ewan talks about this, and that it was going to be about him and Luke. The obvious story. Oh, well, we can't have that. If there's a way to mess up a movie, they'll find it, They're very good at finding bad ideas for something that's, in a lot of ways, pretty simple. Anyway, odds are this rumor has a lot of truth to it. It probably largely has to sit there for a while and see how the Mandalorian film does. Because... why take the time and spend the money on something that they're not sure there's any interest left in Star Wars?